Hello, this is Carla from the Fox Point Library, and I'm going to show you how I used the Silhouette Cameo vinyl cutter to create a paper lantern. This project comes from the book Paper Crafts for Chinese New Year by Randel McGee, and this is approximately the final outcome, although I made a few tweaks involving size and straightening out the lines and adding some holes at the top. This is the pattern at the back of the book that it suggests you trace by placing it over folded paper and cutting out with scissors the shapes. Now the vinyl cutter allows me to scan that shape into the computer and then trace it into this program, which is the Silhouette Studio app. I copied it. Actually, I ended up tracing it line by line to make it nice and smooth because the image that I scanned was a little bit poor in quality. So I traced it line by line. Then I grouped all of those shapes together, and then I made a separate grouping of these three lines here that I'm going to cut differently from the larger grouped image. You can see there's a smaller one inside and a bigger one outside. When I click on the Send tab, you will see how we can use those two groups. This is the Silhouette Cameo vinyl cutter. You can see the carriage. There's one blade where there's actually room for two. We'll go ahead and turn that machine on. It gives you the option to load and unload, and that refers to this plastic sheet that carries the paper or whatever you're cutting through the vinyl cutting machine and allows the blade to cut into it. So I'm going to place this paper. This is red cardstock, and trial and error taught me that if I give it just the teeniest bit of room on the left side, it will line up perfectly. Then we're going to slide it with the arrow pointing forward. I'm going to line it up with that blue line right along the edge. It's actually bumpy, so it's very easy to feel it line up properly. And holding it close against the bar, I hit the load button. And I can see that it's gone in straight because it still lines up with that bump. Now back on the computer, I have to make sure that proper lines are being cut. So I'm going to the Send tab. And right now it's showing 3 straight red lines are ready to be cut. I don't want to cut those or score them, so I changed that to no score. So though the lines are there, nothing will happen to them. Now I've highlighted the bigger shape, the outer shape, which includes those rectangles and triangles in the middle. I've changed it from score to cut, and then from no cut to cut, and that automatically sets the blade level at 3, which is the correct depth for cardstock because I put cardstock plain at the top. When I click Send at the bottom of my screen, the machine starts to automatically set the blade at the correct depth. And if you look closely, you can't see it in the video, but if you look closely at the blade, you will see the little marker has moved to 3 from all of that obnoxious tapping it did before it came over the paper. Now the vinyl cutter, you can see, operates on an X and Y axis because it is 2-dimensional. However, the X axis is operated by the blade moving from side to side. The Y axis is operated by the plastic sheet moving forward and backward through the vinyl cutter. It's rolled back and forth by that metal bar that grips onto the plastic sheet. Now that that shape has been cut out, I am going to change that outer line to say no cut, so I don't want to cut into that anymore. What I do want to do is select this 3-line shape, and I'm going to change it from cut to score, and then I have to change it from no score on the left side to score. And now that those lines are dark, you can see that is the only cutting that's going to happen. Now, I didn't unload that plastic sheet previously, so it's still lined up exactly the way it was when it cut the outer piece. Now when I send it, it's going to change that level from a 3 to a 1. So it's just going to cut very shallowly into the cardstock instead of cutting all the way through. And now that it's reset, it is just going to cut 3 straight lines exactly where I wanted them. And then it will bring the carriage back to the upper left corner, and as it finishes up, I have to wait for that pause button to change to an unload button. Now I'm going to let it spit that back out and catch it. And now I can just lift up the paper, and you can see the outer part comes off pretty easily. I had a very narrow margin on the side, so it did tear a little bit, the outer part, not the shape itself. It came out very neatly. Now I'm going to peel the paper up, and those rectangles conveniently stay stuck down, so I don't have to pop those out manually, as do the little circles that were at the top. Now all I have to do is pop out the little triangles. And I'm ready to fold. And you can see those score lines, if you look carefully, very faint lines that were cut into the paper. And now this becomes the outside of the lantern, so I'm going to flip it over. Those score lines make it very easy to fold this thick cardstock in a perfectly straight line. I'm going to do that on all 3 of those lines. I have to be a little bit careful about those narrow parts where the windows are cut out. But without the score lines, it's nearly impossible to fold a straight line along those narrow pieces. Now I have the completed lantern shape cut out, and it's easy to do this multiple times just by replacing the paper on that sticky sheet.